Are you telling me that God told somebody to marry a prostitute? We'll talk about that and more on this episode of Time Out with Timothy.
Time out.
So here we are back with another episode of Time Out with Timothy. Before we dive into today's subject matter, if you like what you've been seeing, subscribe for me, hit the like button, turn on the notifications, tell your friends to tell their friends, tell their friends to tell their friends. Let's everybody tell everybody's friends, and let's spread the word. So let's get into this thing. Yes, God did tell one of his prophets to marry a prostitute. So there was a prophet by the name of Hosea. He's one of the minor prophets in the Old Testament. And God gave him a very difficult task. He told him, go find a prostitute and marry her, make her your wife. And Hosea did it. He found a prostitute named Gomer. He married her. He made her his wife. And as you kind of can expect, she was not faithful to him. And God told him, take her back. And every time he did, he stuck it out with her. He was obedient. But why would God ask him to do this? What can we learn from this? How can we apply this to today? We'll get into that and more as we move into the story of Hosea and Gomer. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to go super deep into it today. So if you want some more details on it, I encourage you to read the book. It's Hosea. It's 14 short chapters in the back of the Old Testament. So God used Hosea as a living object lesson. He wanted Israel to understand the way they were treating him. You see, they were chasing after human rulers and other gods and things like that God had told them not to do, basically. And every time they would get in trouble, they would come running back to God. He would take them back. God was Hosea. Israel was the prostitute, unfaithful to God in every way, shape, or form. God wanted to illustrate to Israel his devotion to them in spite of their lack of devotion to him. You see, so many people look at God as an angry old man, but that's not who he is. Well, we'll get into that more in a second. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go back to Hosea and Gomer. So he chose Hosea to be a canvas for his illustration, and Hosea was obedient. He obeyed him. He found Gomer. He married her. She was unfaithful. He took her back. She was unfaithful. He took her back. And as we'll talk about in a little bit, a lot of times he had to sacrifice a lot to get her back. So why was she unfaithful to a man that treated her right and that looked after her needs? Well, she knew a way of life. She knew how to, her previous actions a lot of times were successful in getting her what she wanted. So she chased those. She chased her desires the best way she knew how to. And that was by chasing men that gave them to her. You can find that in Hosea 2. Chapter 2, that is. When she couldn't get what she wanted, but instead she received pain and suffering, she would go back to Hosea. And Hosea would take her back to be his wife. Just as God would do many times with Israel. You can see this in Hosea chapter 3. And like I was starting to say a minute ago, many look at God as an angry old man just sitting up there looking for an excuse to unleash his wrath on the people of earth. Like he's salivating at the thought that he can strike us down when we give him the slightest little reason to do so. They think God equals judgment when what they want is love and acceptance. So they try to get as far away from God or judgment as they can by moving as close as possible to what they perceive to be love and acceptance. Those words sound familiar to some words that we hear a lot today. You know, compassion and tolerance. are two things that are said a lot, and their meanings are twisted a little bit, but that's another topic. I'll stick back to Hosea a little bit here. So those different things could be many things. It could be lifestyles, they could be drugs and alcohol, they could be friendships, they could be promiscuous sex. Sure, all of these things are possibilities. Most of these will see these as obvious possibilities, but we also chase the relationships we shouldn't be chasing, friendships that lead us down the wrong path. One thing that a lot of people won't say is we chase heterosexual relationships that are not healthy. People often accuse Christians as only focusing on homosexuality as being wrong, but there's so much wrong with the way heterosexual relationships are done these days when you look at the Bible standpoint. So call a spade and be fair about it is what I say on that. But again, getting a little off topic here, let's divert back. We throw ourselves headfirst into our careers, other things that we find fulfillment in, looking for that fulfilling life, filling that gap. Meanwhile, God is sitting there waiting to offer the one thing that can truly fulfill, and what we're really looking for, even though we don't know it. So Hosea provided Gomer all she wanted, but she didn't realize how good she had it. You don't realize what you got till it's gone, kind of thing. She went after it using the method she knew. And again, how does that remind us to today? What are we told to do so often? We're told to follow your heart, chase your dreams. You can do anything that you set your mind to. Again, I'm going to say it. The heart is deceptive and wicked and evil. Following your heart sounds good. It sounds like something that will give you hopes and dreams and make your life just full of rose petals and happiness. But following your heart, man, that little sucker will lead you to places you don't want to go. Even if it gives you happiness, happiness is fleeting. It goes away just as fast as it comes. Just ask Gomer. One day she's getting the things she wants from the men she's chasing. Her efforts are appearing to be fruitful and good. Next thing you know, she's considered a man's property. And this is how things worked back in those times. She literally became a man's property. She was basically a slave. Hosea stepped in again. He went to the man. He bought her back for basically what was half the price of a slave and about a day's worth of food. This again is in Hosea 3. That also sounds familiar, especially if you have any knowledge of Christianity and the story and the reality of Jesus Christ. Because that is what he did for us when he died on the cross. He bought us back at the price of his suffering and his blood. And now we, like Gomer, can be restored into a relationship with Christ despite our tremendous shortcomings. So we're often looking for things to help us get through life. Self-help books, TED Talks, many other sources to try to pull ourselves together. And what I've found in life is there's only one book. There's only one self-help book. There's only one set of instructions that always work. And you're probably not going to be surprised when you hear me say it's the Bible. You don't even have to believe in God to see that this book is full of wisdom. And if you live by the wisdom in this book, your life is going to be better. Yes, it will be that much more better, to use some improper grammar, if you include that relationship with Jesus Christ in that. But regardless, there's nothing but wisdom in that book. And I can hear people now, well, it supports slavery and it supports men being dominant over women and it supports men having bunches and bunches of wives and just going around being us. No, it doesn't. All of that stuff is in the Bible, yes. The Bible is an accurate history book. This is part of history. So it is talked about in the Bible. It is not supported. It is, slavery, for one, is talked down upon and rejected by the Scriptures. Marriage is set up to be between one man and one woman. Jesus said a man is to love his wife as Christ loved the church. And like I just talked about a second ago, Christ died for the church. So the Bible is not the things you hear. That is a twisting of the Scripture. So, like I said, the Bible is the best self-help book there is out there, but it helps you to understand the instructions in this book a whole lot better when you know the author. So thanks for listening to another Time Out with Timothy. If you found this one good, like it, subscribe it, share it with your friends, and we'll talk to you again next time.